mage, the secrets-based mage, for example, and it's in the end, it's none of the above. Hato and Israel have found an entirely brand new option, and it's going to be Elemental Mage featuring Pyros, nonetheless.
Very, very interesting. And the weird thing about this deck is...
that it's Elemental Mage?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm just trying to build the deck in my mind.
Okay.
Right? There's, outside of, like, Ice Block, there's not too many, outlasting opportunities. A lot of the other elemental decks, Shaman, can just like outlast their opponent and go for the long game. Also have cards potentially like, Bloodlust has a lot of AoE. But can you really fit that much AoE in a deck where you're playing like Pyros, for example?
So when I have seen this deck being played, I ran into it a couple of times, mainly on the first 2 to 3 days of the ladder. Yeah, mainly the first game I queued was one person playing Elemental Mage.
Who got Pyros from a pack.
Who then abandoned it forever. No, I played against it a few times, and I've mostly seen it being paired with kind of the Mana Worm shell. So it's actually being played as a tempo deck where you're just trying to snowball and stay ahead in that regard. And it's these kind of plays that will allow you to do that. If you're jamming 2 1/2s into your opponent's 2 1/1s as an opening, if you can keep outputting that quality of stats over time, then you can actually stay significantly ahead. And that's where a card like Pyros can actually pay dividends, because it's not a great play when you invest it immediately, but if your goal is to continue playing stats over time, Pyros is a ton of stats over time.
Also, so very importantly, it's an elemental, so it can repeatedly proc your elemental sets for the following turns as well. So very important. And that +1/+1 from the Razormaw, I think the best outcome it could have got, outside maybe the 1/1 plants?
1/1 plants, arguably, yes. If you want to do the cold hard vacuum thing that I don't really like.
This play keeps the cute cat alive.
That is superior by far then. But yeah, 1/1 plants would have left, quote, 2/2 of stats in play afterwards, whereas this has left 2/1. So if you want to look at it that way, which, pro tip, you shouldn't, then the plants would have been better. But obviously, I think maybe plants would have been better purely for the reason that Hato can ping off 2 power this turn if he wants to, whereas if it was 1/1 plants, he would have only been able to ping off 1.
It does have the option to play Pyros this turn, but doesn't really do too much, as the Pyros is pretty much the ping and then you cycle it anyway.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't mind keeping hold of Pyros, because at the end of the day, it is a 2-mana elemental proc.
He's going to go for it, though, just to contest the 3/2. The other option was to ping the 2/1 and value trade into Cute Cat, but then your opponent gets a value trade right back. That means you have to ping the next turn, and Israel don't want to ping next turn. They want to play Tark Reaper, because the turn after that, they want to play Tol'vir Stoneshaper more than anything they've ever wanted in their life.
Yeah, Tol'vir Stoneshaper, a very, very strong card when it is activated by an elemental, gains Taunt and Divine Shield. But also as well, something I didn't really think about too much is Water Elemental is an elemental. Believe it or not.
Yes.
Just dropping the knowledge on you guys here. But this means this.
Can we get a PogChamp for that Raven fact right there?
Bring out the best stuff for you guys.
Yeah.
But what I was meaning, if you let me finish before laughing at me,
Never.
was that this fills the 4 spot nicely with the elemental as opposed to the Fire Plume Phoenix, right?
Yes.
Which we've discussed at length. So the Water Elemental is actually fantastic. And the fact that that one card might be the step that Mage needed to make the Elemental deck get some work done.
Do you know what? After mocking you so relentlessly, that's actually a very good point. I think every Shaman game last week, I talked about how Elemental decks are not about activating Stoneshaper on 4, they're about activating Servant of Kalamos on 5. Now, to do that in Shaman, you do have to play Fire Plume Phoenix, whereas to do that in Mage, you have that perfect Water Elemental.
Oh no, I have to play Water Elemental, one of the best 4-drops in general. Pretty sick, so we'll see that. The Pyros does return to hand as a 6-mana Elemental now. And it's a 6/6, right?
Yep. 6/6 for 6, and then the even bigger one afterwards.
6-mana, 6/6. Scary card.
I sense an element of sarcasm in your voice, Raven.
3/6.
Oh, I see. I see what you did there.
Wow. I could rely on you to pick up on these things.
No,
but never
3
mind.
spooky 5 me.
Yeah. So, Houndmaster going onto is available here to go onto one of the beasts, the cat or the bird, and the problem there is though it just dies. Maybe the equipping the bow is just a better overall tempo play. Does mean you potentially slightly off curve with the Houndmaster next turn, but you can play Jeweled Macaw to fill out this turn at least first. But the bow just feels better against the Tar Creeper.
Well, you can Houndmaster and chill. You don't have to. You don't have to activate the attacks.
Houndmaster
right.
and chill.
Yeah, Houndmaster and chill is just Raven's version of Netflix and chill, I believe. Yeah. But I mean, he didn't have to attack there, right? He could have just left it in play as a 1/5, not being able to do anything relevant into his 3/3 taunt. Did choose to trade through in the end because it does allow him to push a little bit of damage, and I think Tansoku will appreciate that he needs to be pushing damage in this matchup. He'll get outvalued eventually. Even though Hunter is, you know, a surprisingly high-value deck when it comes down to it, if you are able to draw high mains and whatever 5-drops you're playing, it can get a lot of work done in that regard, but he does need to be pushing damage for sure in this situation. Yeah,
this kill command is actually really nice combined with the Firefly. Can proc the Divine Shield. Jeweled Macaw is going to proc the kill command if there are no better options. And yeah, I actually like this. Keep the Houndmaster on the board because Mage doesn't have Lightning Storm like you used to playing against in Elemental Shamans, right? So this Houndmaster is like progressively more difficult to deal with unless it's a Frostbolt knocking around.
And now you saw that was a good turn for the Stone Shaper because they can follow up, and there is the Mana Worm I was talking about. So it does look like this is going to be the shell of a tempo deck at least. It's a little bit weird to call it a tempo deck because a lot of the mid-game elementals actually sacrifice stats for value. But, you know, with the shell of Mana Worm alongside it, you can get ahead on the board and then use that as buying some time for you to snowball later.
It's a tempo deck because it's got Blaze Caller in it. There you go.
I mean,
that's a strong tempo
card. That's
a
hell of a tempo card, yes.
Okay, so Stampeding Kodo has come from the Macaw. It's going to be really nice here. There's another option to just go Eagle Hombo and Animal Comp, but I don't know. I kind of like just getting the Kodo down here.
How many other Kodo targets are you really going to run into at this point, right? There's probably the second Mana Worm in there, but outside of that, nothing really much juicier is going to come into play. So Kodo seems solid. Glyph going to come out, but Pyro's going to have to come down here because they need to bank on this Blaze Caller on turn 7, which means they need the Elemental proc coming out on turn 6.
Could have gone for either Ping Water Ellie or Primordial Glyph Water Elemental.
True.
There, and not just drop to 6 mana 6/6, because the problem is this still just opens up a lot of damage for your opponent here.
Well, I mean, the ping only takes 1 power off play, and you're developing
more the Glyph.
You're developing 3 less power with the Water Elemental. Sure. You know, this way, if there's another big minion that's dropped this turn by Tansoku, you have a 6/6 in play that can kill one of them, and then a Blaze Caller that can kill the other. Sure. So perhaps, although you open yourself up to more damage this turn, over 2 turns you take less damage because of this, and that's pretty much the case there with that Leok. Now he has answers for both of the major threats that are in play. Houndmaster will change that, however, because putting one of these up to 7 health in the form of the Kodo is going to make life just a little bit of a nightmare for Israel here.
Yeah, there's still that bow in hand as well, so that's going to stack up to a lot of damage in itself. Fire Plume Phoenix as well in the
Wow. Says it all, really, doesn't it?
I mean, that's potentially 6 4-drops, as well as Fireballs.
Oh, you're including the 5/4 that we haven't seen yet, right? As the 6?
Water Elementals, Tolviz, Fire Plume.
Oh, cool. But there's the Mage Elemental card as well, right? There's a 4-mana 5/4.
Oh, with the...
I'm not sure if that would get played. Yeah, I mean, it's not great. Like, I'd probably rather play Fire Plume Phoenix, if I'm perfectly honest, but that's another option you could have in as well.
4-drops in your deck.
Yeah.
When I'm just wondering, we haven't seen a Violence Pole yet, and I would already just want to swap a Fire Plume for a Violence Pole any day of the week. The Glyph into Flame Strike is absolutely fantastic here for Hattel and Team Israel, but... just Eagle Hombo, Hero Power.
It's bow time, yeah.
Yeah, this is just going to start stacking up to a lot of damage. And this Elemental, Water Elemental, not being down means that there's no way for Hattel to lock him out of the bow, lock a minion out of an attack if there was, say, a high main, for example. You know, that is just not available. And Japan's not received a scratch yet. And, you know, all the fireballs in the world aren't going to help when you can only cast 2 per turn here.
That can do the trick, though. That might buy him some much-needed time at this point. Mirror images can buy time. Barrier, Ice Block, all of these things could potentially have got him there. No such luck. 2-mana Polymorph here, because let's see. The Rat Pack can be cleared. They need to take all damage off the board this turn just to buy 1 more turn. So Polymorph allows them to do that more mana efficiently and then actually develop the Water Elemental, which will commit the bow to being used on face. But the big question is that they just need to set up 2-turn lethal here, or else they're just going to lose the game to hero power.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the problem, right? Can an Antonidas, I mean, auto-fill that deck. Why not? It's very interesting, the can. It's just I don't know. Actually don't know what I think about that. Just going to fireball the Pyros there. Get their 10 mana version. Looks quite glorious in golden, but
it looks like they just wanted to look at the 10 mana version.
What does this look like? I've never seen this card before, but Tansoku is going to take the and play together all the time. Then they probably feel comfortable doing that again, because that's just what they do. But we are going to get into the game now. It's B787 already waving to the camera as the game starts. Expect nothing less. And now he is frozen in time, whereas you see the whole of Team Israel there.
Which is fitting for him, because it is, in the end, Freeze Mage.
It looks like it, yes. Frost Nova, Doomsayer, Medivh Valet. Bit of a giveaway with the Flaming Monkey there at the bottom. I love the art on that card. It's so good.
I've never actually noticed the flaming monkey. Yeah,
with a little hat on.
Yes.
It's awesome. And then from Israel, it does look like Dragon Priests. So there have been...
Not ideal.
Not ideal, but there's been a lot of Dragon Priests with Priest of the Feast.
Yes.
In there, Oskaka and Pavel, I believe, played it last week.
Okay.
So yeah, not super full Dragon Priest that you might have seen on ladder a lot. Does have Priest of Feast and some other cards like Glimmer Root as well, I think Pavel was playing. So it's kind of even more of a mixture of archetypes, because there aren't tons of dragons as there are at the moment anyway, and then you kind of, water that down a little bit more with cards that don't synergize too well. But Priest of Feast and Glimmer Root could be really good in this matchup.
It could be. The problem with Dragon Priest is that you don't draw cards quite as consistently, which means, those powerful cards, even if they are in this deck, the same powerful cards that make the weird Lyra builds effective, you don't draw cards as consistently because of the lack of the Circle engine, which means that sometimes you're just not going to hit those tech cards and you're just going to be found wanting.
Yeah, we do see a Pyroblast in B7's hand as well. There is a toss-up with Freeze Mage list between 1 Pyro Antonidas and 2 Pyros. Again, we talk about Hearthstone a lot, guys.
We do.
Yeah. And I was, you watched me the other day play a game where my Antonidas got dirty ratted, and then I went to my collection, removed it, and put another Pyro in. So I was like, guess what can't be dirty ratted? A second Pyroblast. So I personally like double Pyro from what I've played of it.
I'm just going to point out that you were just slamming Doomsayers and Medivh's Valets on the board like an idiot that game, and then your Antonidas was the one remaining card.
I got unlucky.
It got ratted, and then you raged about it.
I got unlucky.
Follow typical Hearthstone player on Raven on Twitter, because that is basically Raven at this point.
All right. For that, I was just giving a breakdown of the deck choices.
Look, I like Antonidas, all right? You triggered me.
Okay, I'm sorry. The light shall burn you indeed. Nice to see these guys having a bit of fun there. The old hero power emote for a turn. You may have seen that style in a certain video on YouTube. Ice Block going to be activated here for B787. Just get it live now. And the benefit of Ice Block means that Medivh's Valet is just like constantly live at this point.
Yes. If, early on you have Barrier, sometimes if you have Barrier and Medivh's Valet in your hand early, for example, quite often you'll actually do something inefficient on turn 3, like maybe even just play a Loot Hoarder.
Yeah, to like turn 5.
So that on 5 you can play Barrier Valet, because you need to have that Barrier live the turn that you play it to proc the Valet effect. But with Ice Block, no such concerns. That means that Medivh's Valet are just incredibly powerful minions whenever you draw them now.
Yeah, Dignion 3 as a battle cry is absolutely insane, considering the body on the mini itself is a 2/3 for 2, so all highly valuable stats there. And we did see Glacier actually pick the Bookworm from the Discover, so another option to kill either a Valet, but most importantly probably a Doomsayer at this point. But even the Arcanologists, as you mentioned earlier, suddenly Loot Hoarders, Valets, Arcanologists are all minions that feel they can pile on way more pressure in this version than previous versions of Freeze Mage.
Yeah, we talked about Lorinda earlier. Lorinda's been trying to learn Freeze Mage recently, or the new build of Freeze Mage. And there was a comment that he liked, which I think sums it up nicely. It was like he was struggling to get his head around the minion fiddling in this deck. And I just kind of like that phrase, because there is suddenly just this little bit of just fiddling around with random minions that you didn't have in Freeze Mage before. You've suddenly got these 2/3s that you can actually tempo with a little bit, push a little bit of face damage early sometimes, allow you to set up big burn pushes, and they also just interact with each other in strange ways, because one draws you a secret, one then gets activated when that secret is equipped, so you have all these different implications about how to sequence those early minions, Loot Hoarder, Archaeologist,
They're not just curved.
Medusa. Exactly, right, yeah.
So we do see the choice from Primordial Glyph there going to Flame Strike, and just to go off the last bit on your point, it's no surprise that Lorinda makes up a phrase, he likes it and I don't, so that we are kind of polar opposites in most aspects, so that is no surprise at all. Antonidas, a choice from the Draconid Operative, but there's a potential that Arcane Intellect is just more valuable to be able to help out with that card draw you were talking about earlier on.
It's true, but he does already have a Priest of the Feast in his hand, and he has a coin, which means Antonidas can generate fireballs guaranteed with the coin. Those fireballs can then just be used to kind of infinitely heal yourself with the Priest of the Feast later on if it's not dealt with, which, as I mentioned, dealing with high-statted minions that have persistent effects isn't something that Freeze Mage wants to be doing, because the cost investment of throwing a burn spell at a minion in this deck is much higher than it was in the previous build, because your damage cap is actually just that little bit lower due to the lack of Forgotten Torch and the lack of Ice Lance.
Yeah. This turn so far, I actually do like Blizzard here. This softens up the minions and puts the Operative to 4 and tries to bait out more minions for this Flame Strike that, frankly, B787 shouldn't have. Right, you know, this standard list does not run Flame Strike, got it from Primordial Glyph, and it also just fits very nice with the curve, and then suddenly there's 2 Fireballs, 2 Frostbolts, Pyroblast available.
Yep.
So there's a lot of burn damage, actually, even through some healing from Priest of the Feast. So I do like baiting out a bigger AoE here, then you can start making the push with the Acolyte for damage in the next couple of turns.
Seems reasonable. So over the course of a couple of turns, he has 9 on one turn, plus a ping is 10. The same again the next turn is 20. Pyroblast is 30, so he wouldn't actually beat a significant amount of healing, which means he does need to start picking up some more burn if he's going to go down that route, be it through Glyph or be it through Antonidas. Or he has to just potentially play the long game here and go for the Alexstrasza route. Those are basically the 2 options at this point. The Flame Strike is a little bit interesting to me in that spot, though. The Blizzard is more of a universally strong card in Freeze Mage than Flame Strike. Flame Strike requires a specific situation for you to use it and for it to eventually buy you a turn.
Yeah.
That's all that Freeze Mage is about, is can I turn my turn into my opponent not being able to make any progress. That then gives you 1 extra turn to play with towards the end of the game, which is how you set up your 2- and 3-turn lethals. Blizzard does that in any situation. It stops any board from attacking. So I think the reason B7 chose to use Flame Strike there is that it was only really going to be effective there, whereas in the future, there's always going to be 6 health minions, 8 health minions coming down to hit the board, so it doesn't always buy him that guaranteed turn.
Yeah, definitely a tough one. I did like the push into extra damage as well, leaving a 2-3 on the board. Obviously, it would have cleared up by Bookworm, for example, in this instance. But yeah, does get that guaranteed value, as you said. Now I just feel that B787 just needs to get some drawing going and needs to get Alexstrasza, because as you mentioned, this raw damage would kill a rogue, for example, but will not deal with a Priest of the Feast heal, but it might be enough to actually afford to fireball a Priest of the Feast. If you have Alexstrasza first, you Priest of the Feast, you fireball it, and then go. Because then they're probably not going to play a Priest of the Feast, especially in Dragon Priest, and get like 12 heal. Right? You know what I mean? It's just probably not going to
6
happen.
most often.
Realistic.
Yeah. So, you know, if you Alex them, they go to 15, they Priest of the Feast back up to 21. Probably can't fit a natural heal in alongside that as well, so let's call it 21. And you then fireball the Priest of the Feast down. You still have 22 damage remaining plus pings from just the remaining burn spells that you have in hand. On top of that, of course, goes Antonidas, Primordial Glyph, any extra burn you can pick up. So.
And also as well, the turn pretty much for Priest of the Feast has to be Priest of the Feast, Shadow Word Death, and a spell to get to 6, right?
Right.
So that's, you know, even an ask in itself of your opponent as well. But the Acolyte is going to come down, and looks like B7's just like, yep, just draw me 1 card. That's fine, or 0 potentially. His hand is pretty full as well, so the odds on this Acolyte just instantly dying and not drawing 3 is actually a good thing for B7 at the moment.
Well, it's never quite a good thing. Let's not
No,
go
but
that far. But it's acceptable, and you know, it's the reason why B7 isn't pinging his own acolyte, because then he just gets into overdraw country.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, if anything, he just wants to cycle a little bit to get into some cards that he can actually play out of his hand. You know, the ice barriers, the frost novas, those kind of things that can allow him to get some more board space, and then by proxy allow him to draw cards more efficiently over the coming turns.
Oh, that tempo Antonidas is coming down. Someone's going to get one draw. There's a nice barrier.
He could have coined Potion of Madness and turned it into 2 fireballs. Obviously, like, potioning the Acolyte didn't do anything except push 1, but it did turn it into 2 fireballs.
Yeah, that's pretty reasonable to me. Fireball Ping will be able to clear up this Antonidas pretty easily. There's still an option as well for B7 to start off with the Glyph to see what he gets drawn. If like Polymorph, then suddenly, yes, you want to Polymorph over using a Fireball here.
Polymorph, Meteor, there's a few clean answers to minions like this now. Pyroblast is going to instantly make up for that lost damage, though, of having to Fireball this Antonidas. And I'm pretty sure you do have to Fireball this Antonidas.
Yep. 8 mana Pyro. Do you remember the days?
I actually never played Pyroblast when it cost 8 mana. I started playing and I was free to play, by the way.
It was 8 mana, right?
It was 8 mana, yeah.
Because I know Mind Control was.
Yes, Pyro was as well, but you know, I was a free to play peasant and couldn't afford all these shiny epics.
Now you're just a peasant.
Wow, jeez. Now I'm just a full golden role player.
Wow. Come on, don't call yourself a role player. You
True.
don't know the law.
That's true.
What's the law of Pyroblast?
I know that golden cards look shiny, and that's good enough for me.
You know what? For once, can't argue with you on that one. Glimmerroot again. So this is that style of Dragon Priest. I've seen a lot of lists without Glimmerroot, even without Priest at the Feast. But this is becoming more and more popular in the past week or so.
It's like Israel want to make the tempo push here, set up some kind of play that starts to get significant amount of pressure on. But Primordial Drake isn't actually a lot of power in play. It's a lot of stats. But your stats are where you don't really want them against Freeze Mage.
The problem as well is, well, it can't be removed that easily, so that's a bonus. Yeah. But the problem we also had was Tar Creeper does nothing versus Freeze Mage. Priest of the Feast is a key card once you're under threat.
True.
And Glimmerroot would potentially draw a card he couldn't play. So, you know, there was very little else to do that turn. And, you know, 8 health is extremely difficult to remove. But already, this is starting to stack up to be a ton of damage, regardless of Priest of the Feast here. That Pyroblast with the Valet could be a 13 burst. So, not too bad.
Let's recount the damage again. Let's say he was to just Fireball and ping this turn alongside an Ice Barrier. So that's 7 this turn, then next turn he can do 11 more with the Pyroblast. So what, 18, and then 2 Frostbolts, 24, 25, Pyroblast, 35. So it's actually still not beating a significantly powerful Priest of the Feast turn, which is why, again, I think we're seeing B787 just, quite rightly, just continuing to draw. Generate more burn, find the Alexstrasza. I think he knows that Priest of the Feast is the big card he's going to have to try and beat this game, and he's got so much time that he can afford to play around it. This is a key skill of Freeze Mage. In a lot of situations, it's actually not correct to play around anything because you don't have the time to beat those options. Whereas in this spot, you know, you have plenty of time. There's no significant pressure on you, and that was not a tough decision for Israel.
No, but it was a bad set of choices, though. You know, Frost Nova versus, you know, Freeze Mage, even new Freeze Mage with a few more minions. You would still rather just a Fireball or something, right? You know, but yeah, I imagine Master Solia was not a top-notch choice there, as it probably isn't going to be in a deck like Freeze Mage. Ice Barrier's going to be prot now, so that's getting a bit more health for B7. Keeps hold of the board. Doesn't have a Frost Nova of his own, but still has that Blizzard he hung on to earlier to buy himself a lot of time now that there's a significant amount of power on the board.
Right, and just, you know, just for clarity, take a look at the difference right now between the Blizzard that he could have played on the turn he Flame Striked and the Flame Strike, right? Like, imagine this was the other way around. He didn't have Blizzard right now, he did have Flame Strike. Sorry, that sounded like I was passively aggressively trying to teach you a lesson right there, yeah.
Look at what could have happened if you made this choice. I'm sorry, Saul. I won't do it again. Yeah, I mean, my plan was to Flame Strike the turn after anyway. But yeah, I completely get it. The Blizzard here is going to help him just buy time regardless of the amount of health or power on the board. And he's going to need that time as Alexstrasza is just still chilling in the deck.
It's hiding. Medivh's valets now are being picked up, which is just extra damage alongside all of this. That 3 being added to the count might have just put a little suspicion in the back of B7's mind that he now is over the tipping point where he can just start slamming damage to face. But again, have zero objections to him just holding out for the long-term Alexstrasza in this spot.
Yeah, now we can actually translate a Archmage Antonidas Frostbolt into an additional Fireball as well. So then you've got to add up an additional 6 damage. It's squeezing it all in that is the problem. And, kind of hoping that Glacier can't combine enough spells with the Priest of the Feast to make it that difficult. So there's even a chance that the turn you sort of go for it, you make sure you have no small minions on board, so Potion Madness can't work.
That's fair.
Same with Shadow Word Pain.
Yeah, sure, I'm with you. But Antonidas, this is the kind of spot where people don't like Antonidas. This is one of the reasons where people have cut it, because both glyphs have been used in this spot. So, Antonidas' maximum pickup in terms of fireballs now is pretty much 1, unless it lives another turn. So people are saying, if that's the case, if it's only going to generate 1 fireball in a lot of situations, wouldn't I just rather play Pyroblast because 10 damage in the same card slot instead of 6 damage? B787, though, has ended up with the best of both worlds and got that second Pyro in his deck for 8 mana anyway from the glyph.
Yep. That's 1 Shadow Word Pain used, so another cheap spell gone to combine with Priest of the Feast later on. Archaeologist is going to draw him another
Should be a
barrier
left, I think, yeah.
Such a good card.
It's nuts, right? I wonder, everyone, obviously all the Freeze Mage specialists went really crazy. Myself included, I was annoyed about the fact that Ice Lance was going away. I, as much as anyone, thought that Freeze Mage was dead in the water. I wonder now if we just rewound time and, with the knowledge now of how good Archaeologist is for the deck, would we even take this card over Ice Lance, maybe, if we were given the chance?
Yeah.
I mean, we'd take Mad Scientist back in a heartbeat. Let's start with that.
It's just the power of thinning your deck is insane. And just almost like, you're having most of the time a 50-50 on the draw.
Yeah.
I say most of the time. It's actually most of the time you don't have a 50-50 because you've probably drawn a secret by then. But on 2, for example. And it's just so powerful when you're playing a couple of secrets. You know exactly what they do. They're always good as well to have in hand. And it increases the power of your draws so much.
Yeah, I remember way back in the day against, for example, Aggro Hunter, when Face Hunter was the most effective face deck in the meta. Used to keep Ice Barrier sometimes just to have that extra 8 life. Archaeologist is just a much more effective way of doing that.
An Ice Barrier that plays a 2/3 onto the board.
Exactly.
Well, some cards that are pretty dead here from Glacier. And again, with this Power Word Shield, he's got to think about, well, do I actually just keep hold of it and wait because of Priest of the Feast? You know exactly what the Freeze Mage is going to try and do. If it's not happening this turn, it might be next turn or the turn after. You know what I mean? The plan is very linear here for the Freeze Mage and for B787 and Team Japan. There's definitely a lot of discussion going on, as you can see.
Yeah, Israel deep in the tank on this one. They're really just struggling to generate the pressure that they need, and they've had this entire hand full of, borderline useless cards for 6 or 7 turns now. Shadow Word Pain, situational, Coin being reserved for that Priest of the Feast most likely, Dragonfire Potion, terrible card in the matchup, Potion of Madness not finding targets, Power Word Shield just drawn again. They just want to reserve that for the Priest of the Feast yet again by the looks of things. So they've just had this incredibly just reactive, passive hand for the past 5, 6, 7 turns and just haven't really been able to generate pressure. I think B7 has only frozen the board once in this entire matchup, and he's at 26.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? And what's funny as well is this Tar Creeper actually doing a lot of work for Israel here, because it either eats the Archaeologist, or if it doesn't, then Potion of Madness can be used to steal the Archaeologist and trade it, either trade in, attack for 2, and prot the Priest of the Feast. So it's kind of a weird sort of style checkmate on the board for the way these 2 minions are going to interact going forward. But yeah, how much longer do you wait as B7? Do you just have to just wait and then just go for the plan? He
looks like he has a decent grip of cards still remaining. I don't think he's down below 5 yet at this point. So, he's still only probably looking at something like a 1 in 8 or so of drawing Alexstrasza on his given turn, obviously increasing in odds over time. So he doesn't have infinite time to be able to guarantee getting the Alexstrasza. It's not like it's only a matter of I only have to survive 2 or 3 more turns and I get my Alex for sure.
Yeah.
There's still a good chunk of cards remaining in his deck, which means maybe at some point he's going to have to try the alternate win condition. But I think at this point, when he sees the amount of cards that are being held onto by Israel, he knows what's up. Like, he knows what the plan is. There is a Priest of the Feast and a bunch of cheap spells being held onto by Israel in this spot.
Did just see Potion Madness, though. So that's one more off the old list. Frost Nova now available for Japan and B787 here. So as you said, he's only froze Blizzard so far. Sorry, frozen the board with Blizzard, and now he has a Frost Nova, which is going to continue to buy more and more time, and time is exactly what he needs.
What to do? What to do?
Yeah, there's a Doomsayer to pair with it that he almost certainly doesn't expect to go off. He's seen one Bookworm, one Shadow Word Pain get used, but again, bunch of cards being held in hand that haven't found the right situation to be used yet. That means those aren't just minions that can be dropped on curve, they're reactive things like Holy Novas and Shadow Word Pains. So his Doomsayer probably won't be going off, so he knows he's not going to get his free turn of tempo here. If he was going to try and get a free tempo turn, he'd almost want to be curving that into his Alexstrasza turn anyway, which he doesn't quite have yet. And there's actually still only 9 power on the board. It's not the most intimidating board state you've ever seen when you take away the fact that the Tar Creeper will only be getting in for 1. He's going to Nova, though. Is he going to pair it with the Acolyte? Is he going to pair it with the Doomsayer? He's going to pair it with both, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a win-win. If the Doomsayer is killed, great. The Acolyte lives, he can draw more cards. If nothing's killed and it's all cleared, then great. There's now, again, 0 pressure on the board coming from Israel. Second Dragonfire Potion, not what they are looking for at this point.
No dragon in hand to activate Bookworm either, so that Shadow Word Pain is the one and only clean answer right now. There are some messy things that you could do, like Holy Nova Coin Dragonfire Potion, but that doesn't seem too entertaining.
No.
Actually, it seems very entertaining. It just doesn't seem very good.
Yeah, a bit of an over-exaggeration for what the board looks like at the moment. I'd rather let everything die than make that play, I think.
Why? You heal your dudes for 2. Sweet.
Yeah. that Tar Creeper is still only going to get him for 1 no matter what his health is.
Well, the Tar Creeper will be dead, unfortunately.
Oh, sorry, yeah, we killed off.
Why are we actually critically evaluating the line of Holy Nova Coin Dragonfire Potion?
It is a legal move, as you would like to say.
Yeah.
Something he could, in fact, do. Shadow Word Pain, no true surprise coming out, cleaning up this Doomsayer. And just a casual heal now. Lesser heal.
You know what that is? That's 2 years of casting experience where you say things like, Shadow Word Pain is the only real answer to this right now, and then someone on Reddit goes, no, he could have Holy Nova Coin Dragonfire Potion, you idiot.
You're like, yes, that was a thing. That was definitely one thing that could be done. Hero Power onto the Acolyte, though, is going to make P7 get full value from this guy. And, I mean, Alexstrasza is in the deck somewhere, I'm just saying. Ah! Nope. Frost Nova Doomsayer, anyone?
Well,
again?
as we mentioned on the previous turn, there is no dragon for that Bookworm.
And there is a Dragonfire Potion coin Holy Nova.
Yes. More importantly, from B7's perspective, you know, I've been talking about how he probably has a read on a lot of situational cards, but just purely as to the cards he's seen now, I think that's 1 Bookworm, 2 Pain that he's seen already. So this Doomsayer now ticks all the boxes. He's seen 3 of the Doomsayer answers get used. He gets his free turn of tempo, and as I mentioned on the previous turn, it now sets up that Alexstrasza turn perfectly.
Yeah, just in time, though. Glacier draws the Shadow Word Death, which means he can go Priest at the Feast, Shadow Word Death, Powered Shield, Coin, 0 power?
Things. Priest of the Feast plus things. That's what you can do.
Plus the heals. But it does mean B7 can just get cooking. I think he's been waiting a long time in this game so far to start just throwing damage to the face here. Are they actually discussing the Dragonfire?
I really hope so.
Oh yeah, but we can stop this going
We
off.
have created the narrative of Holy Nova Coin Dragonfire Potion.
Okay, I'm going to take a wild stab in the dark and say Alexstrasza's coming down pretty quickly here for B7. This is pretty much, as we said from the beginning, the plan. And now we see Glacier respond in kind.
Now they are just counting their options. B787 is just considering using his time here basically to consider all the implications, because his turns over the next couple of turns might not look too complicated. They're pretty much just throw burn at face, whatever the situation. But he's just considering all the potential lines that he could have to go down here. And of course, we said he would be expecting this based on the amount of cards that are being held, but he's going to be hoping that it's not quite as devastating as it could be. But with the second Power Word Shield pickup, this is about as bad as it could have been. Shadow Death and Coin Heal still available to be used. That's 26 that he's put himself up to, and he's got himself the Priest of the Feast so far out of removal range at the same time.
Yeah, with the coin, he's going to go up all the way to 29, and now he just Pyroblast the Priest of the Feast. I think he actually has to.
No.
Is he going face?
He's going face, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, the presumption that all the low-cost spells are now used.
If you Pyroblast the Priest of the Feast, then you only have 25 damage remaining. Right?
Oh,
like,
okay,
you literally can't win at that point.
Yeah, I actually forgot his last card was Loot Hoarder.
Yeah.
Kind of terrible last two draws here from B7. As if they die, you kind of kill yourself quicker, maybe? Oh no, there's so much AoE left in the deck. They're not even going to survive to get one attack in.
Nope. They're going to get Holy Nova, Dragonfire Potion, something, but it's looking like he might just fall short here. The Holy Nova on its own is nearly good enough to lock him out of this game.
Frost Nova as well.
Yeah.
Even though it does nothing to the board,
Exactly.
It is a spell.
Yeah. So the Holy Nova takes him back up to 26, and as I mentioned, Pyro Ping is 11, Fireball is 23, plus a Ping, that's 24, Frostbolt is 27, plus another Ping is 28, but in that time, the Priest is already healing 3 times as well, just from the hero power, plus any more spells.
And you're probably dead with the
Yes,
fatigue.
exactly.
So, yeah, let's see what B7 does here. Can Nova to stop off some damage. Only 5 on board, of course, but when you're on 19 and taking fatigue damage, 5 is a significant number.
What to do?
And this is the difference. I mean, just to explain why this matchup is so much more difficult now than it used to be, and why Priest of the Feast is suddenly a card that just beats Freeze Mage, whereas no one really talked about it like that before. The old decks could send 30 damage in one turn at your face. If they discounted a hand with Emperor, God rest his soul,
And Cobble.
and exactly, an Evolved Kobold or Blood Mage or whatever it is, it wouldn't really matter how much healing you held back to bounce back up. They would just 30 you. And look at the amount of time B787 has had this game. He's drawn his entire deck. If this was the case, in old Freeze Mage, he would have had the OTK in his hand guaranteed, he would have discounted it, and none of this stuff from Israel would have worked whatsoever. But in this situation, this is the only play that can ever win in the game, just hoping to get some chip damage in with Loot Hoarders, but Israel will quickly put a stop to this through whatever means they feel like.
Even just Bookworm, Frost Nova at this point. Like, you fatigue them a bit, you can fatigue them again next turn more with the Loot Hoarder kill. This looks very, very nice here. Additional 3. Just going to heal, actually, doesn't even care.
Draconid Operative to discover their choice of fatigue card.
Yeah. Just 5-6 on the board, seems good. 2 damage of fatigue. B7 is going to concede this game. That was a long one, guys, but that is often how that matchup goes. Just no real way for B787 to clean that up. You know, you can play the deck, and I don't care if you think Tempo Mage is better or whatever, like, we need Freeze Mage in the lineup, but we are going to get straight into it. Looks like good old Miracle Rogue, so we're having a good day so far, not getting any Quest Rogue.
Oh, it feels so good.
Yeah, and from Gundam Flame, it does look like the Vilefin Murloc list with some of the late game, and we can see Stonehill Defenders a big nod to that, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Does have the Vilefin Inquisitor on turn 1 and the War Leader. Vilefin Coin War Leader is a ton of pressure against Rogue. Israel do have the backstab to shut that down. Of course, the patches draw not what they're looking for. I saw Orange post a list, I think this morning or last night, where he had cut the Pirates completely and was playing Fireflies instead, which the more I think about it, actually makes a lot of sense to me. Swashbuckler has a lot of merit when you are playing Sherazin these days, because it means you always have cards in your hand to be able to generate things. But Firefly just does the same thing, except the card that you get always costs 1. Like, isn't that just superior?
Maybe. I'm going to go with a maybe. Until I test it, I'm not going to commit. But yeah, I mean, and also just knowing what card you're going to get as well, right? Like, even though, yes, you know, it being a 1-mana card is fantastic, just knowing it's 1 mana is great. The only problem is it pulls away from more auctioneer value and some potential prep value, because sometimes you can just get an amazing spell, prep it out and win the game, you know? So you do lose some sort of blowout chances. But yeah, I mean, in terms of just consistency, Firefly probably is just better.
Yeah, sometimes you know, you jam Swashbuckler on 1 against Druid and you nail that Wild Growth or the Innovate and you just feel generally wonderful about your life. But I think a lot of the time you just kind of get a clunky 4 to 6 mana card that doesn't do an awful lot, because you know that covers a vast majority of cards in Hearthstone. Sort of 3 to 6 mana and not particularly powerful effects if you're not building a deck around it. So yeah, the Firefly list makes a ton of sense to me. But anyway, there is a patches in this deck, and there is a patches on the board for Israel. And they do now have Coin, Prep, and Edwin available to them, which would be a completely game-ending blowout against most classes. Paladin, perhaps the scariest class to do any of that nonsense against.
Aldor, Peacekeeper, Equality, already in hand that we can see would shut that down. And we see that Murray from Israel was not a fan of the Prep Coin Van Cleef play last turn at all, if you were going to go for that.
Wait, who wasn't?
Murray.
He wasn't?
Yeah,
oh,
it was a joke. Because you're going to Prep Coin Van Cleef.
Ah, I see. It wasn't a very good joke.
It's just because you weren't listening.
I wasn't, to be perfectly honest.
There you go. So, yeah. Razor Petal Lasher, definitely a cool card. It's going to help generate even more cards to be able to combine with that Van Cleef. But as you said, you can go big on the Van Cleef if you want versus Paladin, but you have to do that with the mindset that it's highly likely it gets shut down one way or another.
Yeah, if it's gonna happen, the only real times you'll see it committed to that heavily at high level play is like maybe turn 1, or like coin Van Cleef if you really want to, and just go off like that. Especially if you're backing it up with like a cold blood play in 1 or 2 turns. But this late in the game, there's just a decent chance that you're staring at an Equality or an Outdoor Peacekeeper by this point, and you know, 1 more turn, suddenly Coin Tarim comes into play as well. There's just all kinds of idiocy that you can run into.
Yeah, he's going to even commit to killing this War Leader here with the Petal, so going to reduce his options a little bit. Probably be looking for a nice spell next turn to maybe prep it out with the Vile Spine to be able to kill off anything that gets played here, but again, these options aren't really too good for Gundam Flame. I just see True Silver Champion into the Razor Petal.
Yeah, not great. He can
maybe even just True Silver Champion pass.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, because then you're setting yourself up where Consecration deals with this 2/2 anyway if you're going to play it in the near future. And then, you know, that would be better against, say, a deck like Dragon Priest. Say if Dragon Priest had a 2 health minion on the board right now, then equip True Silver and pass would be nice, because they're likely to play a 5 or 6 health minion in the future, and then your True Silver swing plus a Consecration clears everything up. Rogue just doesn't really have that. Their stuff is either just cleanly answered by True Silver in the first place, or it's an Arcane Giant, and it's just too big for that play to make a difference.
It's the Blessing of Might there off the Swashbuckler. It's actually a 1-mana spell, extra damage, a mini Cold Blood to a certain extent. It's actually a pretty good pickup, I think. For Murray here, if he can get something to stick on the board and get some value. Still not going really to commit to that Van Cleef. I imagine he's just waiting for the gadgets end turn at this point.
Yeah. I think there's just a rumbling through the Israel team right now as to how long they can exactly wait around doing nothing here, and how long, you know, before they actually have to commit to a potential Van Cleef play. But they've still got time. This deck is... its aggression comes very late in the game from Paladin. If they haven't snowballed Murlocs by turn 3 or 4, then it takes them until sort of turn 9, 10 onwards to build a huge board. Yeah. Once they do, that board kills you in like 1 turn. And Gundam Flame here just slamming a 5/4 on the board.
Temple Megasaur.
Yeah.
It's going to go down there and... yeah, I mean, it's, as you said, it's kind of just better than nothing, though, right? Otherwise, it would just be hero power pass. The 1/1 gets cleaned up by the dagger. You're in the same spot next turn. Whereas at least this asks a question of Team Israel here, how they want to deal with this minion. Blessing of Might is just a clean kill on the Swashbuckler, though.
It is. It's a wasted resource, though, in terms of your Van Cleef, the Auctioneers that you're looking to draw, but you
ever just Blessing of Might and then just Vile Spine it?
I was just about to suggest that. It's not ridiculous, because, you know, the Vile Spine is then the True Silver target on the board, so you're asking for your opponent to have an efficient answer to a 5/1, which Paladin doesn't do very well.
And if they conk, you're like... Okay.
Yeah.
You just consecrated a 5-1.
The upside of that play is that the board state it creates is extremely awkward.
4-1.
4-1, I should say. Yeah, you're right. I'm just assuming it was Cold Blood.
I
Yeah.
thought it was Cold Blood.
If it was Cold Blood, it would need comboing anyway, so the play still wouldn't work. But yeah, I mean, I wonder. It's kind of strange. But it's a very, very odd situation. He's going to use the Eviscerate. But
I'll go for Van Cleef, sure.
just go for the Van Cleef instead. But I like the play in terms of the board state that it makes. The downside is that you know, you're using these cheap resources and you're using a Vile Spine Slayer, which is one of your only real nice answers to Tyrion, to Ragnaros Lightlord, to Primordial Drake, even Tarim itself. Like the 3/7 is a nightmare to deal with. You definitely don't want to be sapping it. So, you know, having that Vile Spine Slayer is a big deal, but this is almost more or less all in here for Israel with this one push just with a 6/6 Van Cleef. And if you're all inning, you want to be all inning a lot more spectacularly than just with a 6/6.
Yeah, I think Israel are this is either going to work for them or they need to draw Gadget Zan pretty much next turn here and start to cycle through the deck, because otherwise get one more dry turn means that Japan can move on to a Primordial Drake turn. They can just play Curator next turn as well, get some more resources in hand and put themselves in a very strong position still without using Equality Consecrate.
Gundam Flame now, option of whether he wants to coin this True Silver. Coining the True Silver is more mana efficient. The downside of it is that it reveals it's there, which, you know, your opponent might make different plays if he doesn't know that you have a True Silver equipped. I think the big deciding factor here is that if there is an Auctioneer for Murray right now, the fact that you have a True Silver equipped is not going to stop him playing the Auctioneer. It's still going to come out, you're still going to get to kill it. If there's an Auctioneer, it just has to be played in this spot. So I think coining out the True Silver for mana efficiency is just absolutely correct.
I agree, even though you don't get the added bonus of a wild True Silver champion appears, you do know it is just available there. And like you said, it's just, there's plenty, you've got your next 2 turns almost guaranteed, right?
Yeah,
Curator
right.
to Drake. When are you equipping this True Silver?
Yep.
The prep, though, not the draw Murray and Team Israel were after. This is actually a disaster. Although I was saying that, oh, Gadgetzan needs to be drawn this turn, or they lose, maybe that's a bit strong, but they're in a rough spot. Drawing nothing this turn, which is pretty much what prep is an even more terrible spot to be in. As you can see, the dagger hit, like pass, done. Pretty terrible. With the pickup of the rock pool now, the Curator is going to get even sort of an added bonus of value because it's going to draw another Murloc that you can combine with the rock pool in the following turns. And another player who is bringing this Kodo list as well. So someone let out the secret on this one.
Yeah, Kodo in there. I was going to say we're going to get to learn a little bit about the deck because we saw one Gentle Megasaur get played already. So if it drew the second Megasaur as the beast, potentially, and then we're probably looking at the no Kodo list. But there is the Kodo in here. It is going to be able to deal with the annoying issue of that 1/6, but he might also be holding onto it, looking to pair it with his second Aldor Peacekeeper. If eventually Israel are able to stabilize here with the Rogue, then suddenly Arcane Giants can potentially make a big difference in the late game.
Yeah, and one way Israel are going to win this game is with this play into, this probably gets cleared up by Japan this turn, by Gundam Flame, and then next turn, Gadgetzan's drawn. That's like I think the only way that this game goes to Murray here. There's Sunkeeper Tarim. Not going to be too crazy this turn, because he can pretty much deal with anything anyway, but going forward, he could go wide with these Murlocs.
He definitely could, yeah. With the hero power tokens as well, if he's going to get second Vilefin Inquisitor, that can make huge board states by refreshing the hero power, but there's a more immediate problem right now, and it's that this board state is a little bit awkward and might just demand the big board clear here, but if you equip the, if you commit, the big board clear effects, you're not really developing this turn, which can potentially just snowball the game if Israel can pick up a big draw next turn. And if Gundam Flame knew he was staring back at a hand of prep, then I think this would be a quality consecrate in a second, and then just, you know, develop a Murloc behind it and go from there. But he doesn't. He could be staring at anything.
Yeah, I'm wondering how good just like Kodo Rock Pool is, for example. You can just kill everything except Sherazin. Sherazin probably goes into the Kodo, and then you just build up from there. But he's going to go for the big clear. I like developing the Rock Pool though. You just want something to try and stick next turn.
Yep. You can trade it into a giant next turn. You know, there's been dead cards in hand for Israel. Speaking of dead cards, that is the exact opposite. Gadgetzan Auctioneer, the card that brings dead cards back to life, and now we are going to see the snowballiest of turns. The Hallucination comes into hand now. He can pick another 3-mana spell off. This Divine Favor is insane. Prep Divine Favor.
Every time I see like a big Gadgetzan turn come in, I always feel like, you know, Joker just going like, and here we go. And then just a million cards get drawn.
How many does this draw, just out of curiosity? Like, what's the trigger order? Does the Gadgetzan card draw first before Divine Spirit checks?
Yeah.
Interesting. So it only draws one. All right, not quite as nuts as I was potentially expecting, but the rest of the turn is looking pretty spicy behind it. Backstabs, hallucinations, and he's got himself to the Arcane Giant that he can now tempo out behind this. And this is all happening on the turn directly after a Quality Consecrate has come out from Gundam Flame. I said if he was staring back at double prep, he would do it in a heartbeat. He was, and he's got punished for it anyway.
Yeah, and also as well, what a crazy secret he got. He got Getaway Kodo, which means that any of these 3 high-value targets that die will go to hand. The Giant can just be replayed. Gadgetzan, good card anyway, even though he's got another one. Sherazin creates the pod on the board and still goes back to hand, so you can get 2 Sherazin pods onto the board. Absolutely crazy.
If Arcane Giant dies, you've just got another 0-mana 8/8 in your hand.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just that every single kill is fantastic.
Yeah. And why? Why do people play Quest Rogue? Why do you want to just play a bunch of idiotic 5/5 dudes when you can do that instead? It's just so much more fun.
I mean, look, that guy on the left, especially the animation, is showing how much fun this deck can be.
Correct.
Look at his face. He is having a fantastic, glorious time here at HGG. And, I mean, who doesn't want to be that guy?
That turn was actually just silly.
It's silly in a good way.
He started that turn with 2 0-mana cards in his hand and nothing on board, and ended up with 13 mana's worth of resources in his hand, an 8/8, a 4/4, and a 5/3 in play.
Was that just... Oh, no, it's fine. Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. The Gadgetzan is the correct kill, which sounds weird, but based on that potentially being Getaway Kodo, it was absolutely the correct kill there.
I mean, regardless of whatever the secret was, if he didn't kill the Auctioneer, there was an Auctioneer in play. I think that's the salient point is that you are killing the Auctioneer no matter how hard your read on the secret is.
After that many draws, though, you'd imagine the second one's in there anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sap can push away Tarim if required, but that doesn't mean he's just available again anyway. And again, here comes the stack for Sherazin. Gonna start counting up on those leaves, already on 2.
Yep, guaranteed at this point, has the 2 more cards available to play. Just deciding whether he wants to go Mimic Pod here, or potentially Sap even, or go with the Razor Petal Lasher to get the 1-mana Petal. It's going to be Sap on a just random Murloc dude. No, it looks like they've taught themselves out for it. You need to commit.
They need to commit.
They need to commit. Whatever they're going to do, they need to commit right now, because there are several more draws they're going to hit this game that they need to react to.
Especially with Swashbuckler.
Yeah.
This is what we were saying earlier about, you know, it might be good to have a 4-man team, but not when you need to get this much work done. It's going to prop the Sherazin as well. Clear up this and just leave the Vilefin on the board as a 3/3. But look at this. Oof, this is getting out of control. Spyridge Steed after seeing a Sap, though.
Yeah.
Not too shabby.
I do wonder about that Sap. Obviously, I think Israel were just trying to clear the board as efficiently as they could to play around things like Spike Ridge Steed. But they left themselves in a position where they used their best resource against one of the cards that they're afraid of to play around one of the cards that they're afraid of. It didn't really make a great deal of sense, and I think there was a wave of panic going through Israel towards the end of that turn as they tried to scramble for something to do. You know, I was shouting at them to commit to something, and they did, which, you know, is good, but I think they just committed to the wrong thing in the end.
So, Gundam Flame still has Consecrate left, right? He has 1 left.
He used 1 Quality Consecrate. I don't remember him using the second card.
So if he Spike Ridge Steeds, plays Rock Pool, and goes all face, he could just put him on a Consecrate draw next turn. So he's going to kill the Gadgetzan. I'm just wondering, like, how scared are you of Gadgetzan after it's just been live for 2 turns?
That does sound ambitious. I'm going to put it out there.
Okay, if Consecrate's drawn, just saying. I mean, he does the play anyway because this is just a good play, except he kills the Gadgetzan. So we'll see what happens there. If Consecrate gets drawn, feeling pretty good about it.
I mean, looking at it the other way, you know, you're trying to find an aggressive way to end this game. From Gundam Flame's perspective, he's nearly beaten everything at this point. Like,
That is true.
There's a third Auctioneer to come, and yes, there's the Sherazin, which is an essentially infinitely recurring resource, but eventually Israel run out of cards to be able to revive it with.
Mimic Pod could double up the Arcane Giant.
Oh boy, that is insane value off the Swashbuckler as well.
Spanish Steed is a pretty good card.
Yeah.
And a hell of a lot of value. There is still one Arcane Giant in the deck though, right?
Yes.
So if that Mimic Pod hits Arcane Giant, it'll be feeling pretty good. Not going to play it this turn, so going to be one more turn before he's able to get it off. And now the Razor Battle has to be played.
You would have thought so.
Choose soon.
It will be, you know, it'll be very clear if you knew exactly how many cards there are remaining as to whether you ever need that card to draw from Auctioneer. But you know, this turn you can use it and draw a 0-mana 5/3. So
Yeah.
that seems pretty reasonable.
Spike Ridge Steed, the Stedagon. I've never seen that before.
I have. I've done this several times. I seem to do this like obviously there's no way this can be true, but I feel like I Spike Ridge the Stegodon more than any other minion.
Ah, okay.
Of course, that's literally impossible for reasons, but it feels that way.
Not if you play Stedagon in the deck.
That's true, but I do not because
Well, okay, that's
I'm not
impossible.
at rank 20.
Rank 25.
Oh, got him!
Okay, so this board, again, is now kind of spiraled out of control somehow. Even though it looked like Gundam Flame had a good purchase on the board, it's not going to be enough here, and it's kind of scrambling now, because Kodo just, it might kill the 2/2, might kill the 1/1, sure, but it doesn't do enough when Valspine lashes. Sherazin is still on the board. Is this number 3 Sherazin now? And the third kill?
It's at least 3, I think.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like the value on this card is kind of nuts. Primordial Drake, though, good value card in itself.
Spike Ridge Steed now only introducing 5 power into play, and it could, as you said, Raven, just come down to this Mimic Pod at this point. Cold Blood is a really nice pickup, though.
What minions are even left?
It depends. I mean, the list is built very differently. Sometimes there's a second SI agent, sometimes there's teachers, sometimes there's Leroy. Like, all of these things could potentially be in there.
Because I think there's one Eviscerate, there's one Arcane Giant, definitely. Because why wouldn't you play 2 ofs?
Right, yeah,
You know, come on,
almost definitely. Oh, the value.
Ooh. Just double Mimic Pod, Cold Blood, go.
I mean, you can. Gets you a 5/3 back, but the 7/1 doesn't really do a great deal in that spot, though. You don't have the mana left over to dagger.
It's fine.
Could Mimic Pod into... Is there a backstab left?
I think so, actually. Yeah, one backstab was played right at the start, wasn't it?
To kill the 1/3?
Battlefin.
Yeah.
Choose soon.
Oh, Mimic Pod again. Yes.
Desperately trying to scramble for what these last cards are. He Arcane Giant. Yeah, he got him. He got him. That is just going to be back-breaking for Gundam Flame. Don't think he has any way of dealing with all this value now. The Spike Ridge Steed is going to put a wall in the way, but Murray has his own Spike Ridge Steed to be able to put the value train straight back on them. And even if the Spike Ridge Steed comes down, he's still going to take a huge amount of damage to face.
What was the name of that card again? It's a Spike Ridge Steed about 3 times in one sentence.
Yeah.
Just tickled me.
Well, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, Stonehill Defender, though, could pull something at least fairly reasonable. Tarim could be huge. Stubborn Gastropod got this for the team. Can kill off a giant.
Israel have that look on their face right now that pretty much everyone does whenever they face Stonehill Defender. Just, oh god, not like this.
Well, against Paladin as well, Tarim would be a legitimate problem here.
Yes,
We'll just
exactly.
completely blow out everything with these giants.
Didn't get it, though.
Flame, though. I mean, nothing feels great when you're facing down this much damage. I think he has to actually play Spike Ridge Steed or he dies.
Yep.
Or Wicker Flame, you know, like, yeah, he had to turn up an additional minion.
Spike Ridge does theoretically keep him alive, and if he can find a Tyrion turn where he also stays alive, he's set up lethal with Ashbringer.
Yep. Also, if there's... So, does he double kill? He can't kill everything, right? I wonder if he can get in conk range as well.
Well, there's only at most going to be 2 power left in play, right? And even that's not happening. The 3 trades as we see them are going to take him down to 1 power, so the Consecration setup seems unlikely.
Yeah.
Both True Silvers have been used, so that setup doesn't work either. And I think if Tyrion is the draw, then he's just going to be dead on board, so...
Almost out of cards.
There is a teacher.
Yeah. I was going to draw the teacher. I think there's just 1 more card left. Can Mimic... Well, he has to play Mimic Pod this turn, right?
Does he?
If there's 1 card left.
Choose
I guess
suit.
if he could just set up a win.
Well, I mean, there's the question of does he want to draw a card right now? It does draw
Sure.
the card. Like, is having 2 copies of it worth pushing yourself closer to fatigue in this spot?
Maybe just Spyridge Seed, a giant holiday.
He's going for it. It means he probably knows what this is and he wants it specifically, and it's the Eviscerates, right? Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
There we go.
Yep. That should just be game ending through just about anything. Pushes the damage, has a second of this set up. Even Tyrion coming down.
Holy
not gonna
Wrath.
end it. No, no.
Out of nowhere, Wild Holy Wrath appears. This is 2 taunts available. You can get a 3rd taunt.
So yeah,
Taunt would have to be
Defender
glorious,
into
though.
Burn Bristle into, there you go, Pompous Thespian. I can fit Stegodon as well. Interesting.
Does Sunkeeper doesn't do it, right? No.
No.
Because of this.
Yeah, and he also knows there is an Abyss in hand because he saw one. He saw it get
Yeah,
drawn
yeah.
off Mimic Pod and saw
It's
it
the
get
only
used.
card, yeah.
Yeah.
Sunkeeper going to come down now, but that is, I believe, not going to be enough unless I am crazy.
That's fine. The Burn Bristle, maybe it did. Did the Burn Bristle, Stonehill, and Stegodon play keep him alive? Curious. Either way, it's not a game. He was in with a fantastic shot of winning because his top deck outs were pretty much down to Tyrion at that point, which limits him. That's a 2-turn lethal that he needs to set up with Tyrion,
Yeah,
which
that's a long
just isn't
time.
going to happen.
Okay, and that is going to be very, very close indeed. Pretty much coming down to that Mimic Pod to get the additional Eviscerate to continue the push there.
And the additional Arcane Giant as well.
Yeah, that's
his
true.
Mimic
Wow.
Pods hit Arcane Giant and Eviscerate that game.
On point Mimic.
It's the very best players in the
I
region.
think it was either tiebreaker or it was that 1 game out. It was, I'm pretty sure, no more than that. So we'll see what he can do now as we can see both players, to the joy of everyone, are playing Fire Plume's Heart. So it is going to be the Taunt Warrior versus the Taunt Warrior. Already, though, we can see Armor Smith in Yonatan's opening hand, so he's definitely playing the more almost feels like an all-rounder version now, as opposed to the other list without it. Because although it's kind of tech for Freeze Mage, it's also kind of good versus Pirate Warrior, for example. So it's kind of just an averagely good deck as opposed to the cards without this, which I feel are actually just better in some other matchups, like control matchups.
Yeah, I think it's just wise to bring this version. I expect most versions that we see will have, you know, the Armor Smith, Shield Block, Shield Slam, etc. that's been popularized recently in response to Freeze Mage. The week 1 meta that we saw, I think Monsanto was already playing and posting about Freeze Mage at the point we broadcast last week, but it hadn't really caught on with anyone
No
else.
one had time to practice.
No one else
right?
really believed him yet at that point. And then people tried it out, and we all established Monsanto as our Lord and Savior. It's not often that Laughing posts a Freeze Mage list and says, yeah, this list's perfect. And that's basically pretty much what he did with Monsanto's list.
And it's not his list.
Yeah, exactly.
that's the scary thing.
So now that Freeze Mage is back as a dominant force and you'd be expecting most of the countries to be bringing Freeze Mage, it just makes sense to have your Taunt Warrior at least have a chance against Freeze Mage. Because without Shield Block and Armor Smith,
You just lose.
You do just lose, yes.
Okay, so nothing too crazy to start off as imagined in this matchup. Both players equipping the Quest. Even though we don't have it on the upper screen, obviously both players did start with it and equip it is the main way to win in most matchups, and especially this one. Tar Creeper coming down for Israel here, and getting off to a very quick count.
Stonehill coming down for Aqua and from Japan. Fantastic card for Quest Warrior. Of course, it's a fantastic card for just about any class in the game, but Quest Warrior in particular, it's just that 2-in-1 Taunt Activator. It's exactly what you need. You can react to the situation. You can pick a higher value card or a bigger Taunt if you're trying to block some aggro. If you're trying to just rush your quest, you just pick the cheapest thing there and just get going, or just whatever fits into your curve the most naturally.
think Diehorn Hatchling overall is just the highest value card, so no surprise to see Aqua pick that one up. He had no real curve anyway going forward, so going for the 5-drop seems pretty reasonable to me. The Stonehill Defender for Israel.
I love the look over my shoulder. Do it. 3-drop on 3, guys? Yeah, 3-drop on 3.
Yeah,
All right, let's go.
That's one.
Yeah.
Diehorn Hatchling, guys? Yeah. There are some moments where Public Defender is actually really good because it's cheap.
Yeah.
We've seen
cost 2.
We've seen multiple games where it's actually this play has happened and Public Defender's been the 2-mana squirrels in the turn to actually prop the quest. And he looks like he's going to go for it. Interesting.
Aqua will now have his moment of 4-drop on 4. Yep, 4-drop on 4. Seems good. I really don't like this deck. I don't know if anyone's got that impression yet. You're all right over there.
No.
Okay.
I imagine this isn't going to be an attack from Japan. This is, again, something you mentioned a little bit, Sol, is like when to attack into the Tar Creeper,
Yeah.
for example, or he could just 1-for-1 into the
Yeah, I
Stonehill.
wonder about that attack a lot more, whether the 1-4 into 1-4 trade is worth it here. It probably isn't, because you don't have War Axe. You don't know whether your opponent has War Axe.
Also sleep with the fishes as well,
Very
right?
true, yeah.
Then suddenly the 2 attacks can actually make
That's
a
fair.
difference.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I think passing ends up being correct. Spellbreaker? Hello.
So just so you know, you don't silence a taunt and get -1 off the off the count. That would be funny. But yeah, it's gonna be a 4-drop on 4. Might actually be worth Spellbreaking the Bloodhoof. Okay.
It doesn't have taunt though. Misplay. Is there a Fiery War Axe play that makes any sense? I mean, you can make 4 with 2/2s this turn, which is still well within the Taunt Warrior philosophy.
That's true. That is true. As long as you feel like you curve, it's fine. You can even Whirlwind Stonehill Defender if you really wanted to, but that seems like an inadequate play.
And I wonder whether the choice to take Public Defender last turn was actually deliberate, giving themselves the option to make this exact play this turn, like War Axe plus Defender, because
It keeps your head on the board, right?
right, because like you were mentioning that like Public Defender as a cheap taunt does actually have some merit in this matchup a lot of the times, just because it rushes you to the quest, which is the entire
2 mana,
goal. But it didn't, unless they were making exactly this play, it didn't really fit their curve very well, because they had Armorsmith on 5 already.
Well, it would have to come out on like 6, then you just take the hatchling, right?
Right,
Or
exactly.
the
Exactly.
ornery Diehorn.
Yeah, you could have played it alongside Stonehill Defender on 6, maybe, or played it alongside Stonehill Defender on 5.
It'd be weird though.
And you're playing Armorsmith on 6, so I was suspecting we were going to see Stonehill I've forgotten the name. Public Defender and Fiery War Axe are coming out on the same turn, just because of them picking it in the first place.
5-drop on 5 for Aqua.
He's nailing it so far, but he's actually just a little bit too slow. Just even though he's actually hit a pretty perfect curve so far, the fact that Israel have been able to play the multiples is just maybe giving them a little bit of initiative here.
I think I like the. Do you actually go into the Stonehill this turn? Because you can see weapons available. There is 5 damage. Yes, you don't die from 5 damage, but Whirlwind is common as well. Like, do you actually just make the potential weapon trade deal 5?
I think like 5 going into the Tar Creeper as well is important, right? If you enrage, the Bloodhoof, then if he wants to full trade with the 1, and the 3 from the weapon, then that's killing the Tar Creeper as well. I think that's totally fine for you.
Just go for the Defender, just get it a little bit lower on health. Means that cards like Sleep with the Fishes have a bit more chance along with a bit more help to actually clear off the minions. Even though we sort of joked about it, like a 0-7, yeah, 0 attack, but 7 is a lot of health to get through actually.
Yeah.
And it's still, you do want to actually clear up the board as much as possible, because once you get that Ragnaros hero power, you want as little minions on board so you can start pushing that extreme amount of damage.
Ali Armorsmith coming down.
Just smash Brawl here.
It's a decent brawl, but does Whirlwind Sleep get you any better? You can trade off your damage 3 health minion to kill one of the others with the Sleep. There is potential to brawl though. It is kind of a dead turn here. He can Bloodhoof Brave if he wants to, but it's not ideal.
If he brawled, you'd have to Whirlwind to fill out the curve, though.
Yeah.
That's the only...
I think if you're going to go for a ball clear this turn, I like the Sleep line a little bit more than I like the Brawl line, but I also just don't see anything wrong with just doing what Aqua's been doing this whole game so far, is just jamming taunts and hoping that he gets there.
Yeah, and to be fair, you're representing quite a hefty board yourself. So if your opponent brawls, it's a turn then probably not developing taunts, and they've brawled for you to a certain extent.
Sure.
Because until you hit the quest, you're okay just the game not really going on, right? You know what I mean? Like, you don't really make much progress other than on board. So unless you're about to hit the quest, you're really not too fussed what happens anyway.
Yeah.
Now, Aqua for Japan here has actually just got the better end of the stick in terms of presence on board, as this Tar Creeper and Stonehill definitely do not match up versus the two Bluetooths here.
They don't, and he doesn't really have any more high-value taunts in his hand right now. He has a taunt minion that he can play this turn, but he's not really contesting the board presence too well, and Armorsmith not the draw he was looking for at all. We've talked at length about how that is a dead card in this mirror, and so far, all the Quest Warriors have come teched for Freeze Mage and have just run into each other and just kind of butted heads and cancelled each other out.
Yeah, I mean, Armorsmith does almost nothing except for the point you brought up earlier, which is kind of defend against Dirty Rat. You know, like you have it in your deck to not play in this matchup at this point, which feels kind of strange, but it just doesn't do enough. As you know, even 10, 12 armor is relatively insignificant against a Die Insect hero power.
Yep. And I think Dirty Rat, which is kind of strange for me to say because I'm generally not a huge fan of Dirty Rat, but it's one of the cards that makes this matchup kind of interesting at times because, you know, playing around Dirty Rat and choosing how to use your Dirty Rats is actually one of the more engaging and difficult aspects of playing the deck. The rest of it is, as we've mentioned, just kind of just developing your curve of taunt minions in the most efficient way and then just taking the advantage from the huge hero power you get out of that.
Yep. And then one turn away from getting that Drake down. There's an option to actually just Whirlwind Sleep with the Fishes here, or just trade Sleep with the Fishes maybe.
Direhorn Hatchling, 1 mana off being efficient here. I think Israel are 1 taunt ahead currently. I think they're up 5-4 over Aqua and Japan. So they do have the slight initiative. They could even, I think, if I've kept track of that correctly, finish the quest next turn with Stonehill Defender if they get a cheap enough taunt offered to them.
And you probably would just take something as cheap as possible, right, to fit in that same turn?
More than likely, yeah. It depends on the card that you draw as well as to whether you need to use all that mana this turn or whether you can just do it next turn anyway, just in terms of what your hand looks like in overall mana efficiency. But more than likely, if you can get something cheap enough to get it done a turn early, you will do that.
So it is going to be Sleep with the Fishes here. And then the trade into the Ali Armorsmith is going to clean this up. And have the Bluetooth Brave just to, challenge the Spellbreaker at this point, and the weapon's not going to be able to quite clear it up from Israel, so he wants to use the Whirlwind. Maybe that's okay.
Does give the board back free to Israel here, though, and Stonehill Defender is going to come down. Oh, it looks like that was number 5, actually. I was 1 ahead of themselves. They're actually tied 4-4, so it's still 1 off after this second taunt is picked up as well. Yep, there you go.
Nice. So, probably Fen Creeper here. Shield Bearer is very cheap, but you probably got the time. Relying on your next draw might not be good enough. You could go Shield Bearer and just say, well, my next draw does it, one way or the other, but I feel like Fen Creeper is just a pretty solid minion.
Yeah, Fen Creeper still can't be played this turn, though, which means I think you've played both Stonehill Defenders already as Israel, so there aren't any taunts apart from Dirty Rat that you can pair with this on the following turn. Your opponent is getting quite close to finishing the quest themselves, and as we mentioned several times, the person who finishes the quest first is just at a massive advantage here. So I like taking, the biggest, most efficient minion that he could play on that turn, which was the Cyclopean Horror. It's not great at a 3-4, but more importantly, it fits his curve right now. And yeah, that is 4 for Japan. I was half right, at least.
As always.
Hey, that's a good average. I'm just batting 500, man.
Direhorn Hatchling is an option here, as the Primordial Drake, on curve fills it out nicely, but doesn't do anything at all. There's no Sleep with the Fishes available for the following turn, and then the 2 damage doesn't make a difference. They probably just trade into the Drake anyway, or one of them might to proc and execute. I wouldn't mind just Direhorn armor up here. I'm gonna go for the trade though, just get a big boy on the board.
Aqua disagrees. Taunt number 5. He has resumed standard Quest Warrior play. The 8-drop comes down on a Ravaging Ghoul. Not what Israel need, though. They have just run dry at this point. Their best draw was just any given taunt. Their second best draw was Acolyte of Pain, just to start cycling through and get more resources, and then, you know, eventually, by extension, get into that taunt that they need. But now the window is open for Aqua and Japan to leap through and square this series back up, because Israel, after getting out ahead early on, have just run dry later in the game.
Yeah, gonna gain some armor with this armor switch. Just get it down now. Barely any minions available anyway. And the XQ's gonna come out to clear up the Drake and just start pushing some damage with this horror. And yeah, this is kind of tough. This is the one spot here. There's Daihon Hatchling is available. Unfortunately for Aqua, no weapon though. A weapon, you know, Fireworks would be really nice now to be able to just start chipping away at these smaller guys. But yeah, just going to be armor up so far, saving the Execute for a much bigger threat. Start on.
Nope.
Ooh, whiff number 2.
That's a huge deal. That means Japan finish first, and that means that the initiative is going to be in the hands of Aqua.
Yeah, it's actually just flipped everything around here. What could have been a pretty straightforward, you know, if Israel got it off last turn or this turn, sorry. Sol's making me laugh.
You child. Don't blame me. Wow. They could hear exactly what happened at home there. They can work it out. They're all smart people. They knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah, we're talking about the taunts.
Yes.
So now that Aqua's going to finish the quest first, it does actually change everything. You're right. Brawl doesn't do much versus the hero power and the weapon. Anyway, neither does Whirlwind. Both cards in Israel's hand are completely dead. And that is another Drake now.
It's a ball clear with the Whirlwind if he wants it.
Why not? Right?
Seems good. When you're about to start firing 8 damage, taking these small tokens off the board next turn seems reasonable, but it looks like he just wants to do it right now. This gives him the option of just hitting a fairly unglamorous target with the 8 damage if he's going for that, but you know, I guess if your 2 options are smash your opponent in the face for 8 or kill a small target and clear the board, that's a hard situation to turn down anyway.
Yeah, it's pretty good overall. And he can just play the the Primordial Drake next turn with hero power as well. So it's not like not playing the Drake this turn loses out too much.
Right. Just considering his options here, he's going to go ahead and hero power first. So it looks like he's aiming for the board clear specifically. He didn't want to deal the damage. He was prioritizing just clearing the board completely. Otherwise, he would just kill one of the minions first to try and increase the chance of a face hit. And wow, Israel. You see, the Yonatan himself is just continuing to play. Everyone in the background just immediately tuned out and got disgusted by the fact that they still couldn't pick up that final taunt minion.
Yeah, and Aqua even now knows that that was not a minion draw, basically.
Yeah.
Because I think almost all the minions except for Armor Smiths and Ghouls are taunts in the deck. And, you know...
And Acolyte.
Yeah, sure, an Acolyte. And it wasn't played. So Dirty Rat can be held for next turn as well, or however long he needs. He's already got the quest. This is just 8 more damage. And, you know, don't like calling games too early, but this is going to be a very, very difficult one. Still no taunt. We might even just see a concede at this point. This is how hard it will be to even come back into this game.
7, 11, 19 damage he's staring down right now. So,
the big brawl.
Just going to brawl away one of these minions. Does get the superior outcome. How fortunate for them. They can now Whirlwind and sleep with the fishes, but they are just going to give it up in the end. The concede is going to go down. Yonatan is up from his seat, and this one is going to go all the way down to that ace match, Raven.
Yeah, we're going to see B7, A7, because what Zood is good at is not what Shaman's good at a lot of the time in terms of, well, Shaman has really strong AoEs, right? You know, and Zood just has a board. But we are into the game now. This is the decider, Elemental Shaman versus, I spot an Anaconda, a very sophisticated one with the way it's got the hand that isn't his hand.
It does look like it should just have a snifter of brandy.
Yeah, exactly,
in that hand,
100%.
Right? Yeah.
Can we get that edited on, please? Either someone in production or Blizzard. Change the art.
We'll wait.
Yeah, we're actually not going to continue with this game until this is done. This is an official request. But now this is the heavy ramp druid from Israel. We can see Moonglade Portal swooping back into the druid list. Been gone for quite a while. But now is one of the key cards, helps develop a big dude and just an extra little bit of health for this deck because it can, you know, have a bit of a rough opening a lot of the time.
Well, more importantly, you also just have a bunch of minions with 8,
To heal,
10,
yeah.
12 health. So, like, the ability for Moonglade Portal to just get repeat value out of the huge dudes that you play in this deck is the big reason why it's come back in. The actual self-heal in the deck is more often in the form of Fel Rage and Earthen Scales. Like, Earthen Scales on its own, even if you only play one of them in the deck, it's quite often just enough to be as much healing as you could ever possibly need in this particular deck.
As you see on Japan's side, in B787, playing the Elemental Shaman, we see hexes, which are going to be huge. But the problem is, are there enough hexes?
No.
Because if you look at an average deck list, like the screenshot, the image of it, the curve's pretty reasonable. Normally halfway down the list, you're about 5 mana. Not with this one. About a tenth of the way through the list, you're at 7 mana or something. The curve is so high, it's kind of ridiculous in general. Obviously, we don't know the exact list Glaze is playing, but if 2 hexes don't get you enough tempo to win in this game, I feel like B7 is going to struggle quite a lot here.
Yeah, it's the only deck I've seen where you can play Bright-Eyed Scout and be confident that it actually discounts you more often than it doesn't.
Yeah. I know Admirable loves Bright-Eyed Scout.
Well, I mean, the thing that people really miss about Bright-Eyed Scout is that it draws you a card. Like, if it like costs 5 and it was a cheap card to begin with, that's annoying, but you still have the next card in your deck in your hand a turn earlier than you would have done otherwise. That's what drawing a card does. So 4 mana 3/4 that draws a card is just pretty strong. It doesn't matter what it does to that card afterwards.
Second Moonglade. Know what Glaze is going to want? Missing a ramp up until next turn when the Maya Keeper comes down, and the Maya Keeper is going to be forced to ramp. B7 not off to the most aggressive start. A Flame Tongue would, provide some damage out of nowhere, but in general, you just need to ramp with this deck. I don't think I've ever seen anyone play it any other way.
Just going to go ahead and Hero Power. Not too much to do so far, and nothing looking too promising going forward either in terms of real explosivity. Maya Keeper into the Moonglades, as you said, is going to help him just ramp up and start get going a little bit, but he doesn't have those absolutely back-breaking plays where you just innovate super early, get down a giant Anaconda when you have a Yashiraj in your hand, all this kind of nonsense that this deck is capable of. It's at least being a little bit honest in that regard in this matchup.
Well, we saw as well last week Barnes into Anaconda, into Deathwing, I think it was, which is just, what are you going to do? Hex would help with that, of course, but yeah, none of these early cards are going to do too much. Ysera, for me, one of the strange choices in this deck, because it's not a 5-attack minion.
It is a dragon, though, and you do play Deathwing Dragonlord most of the time.
Okay, yeah, that's true, that's true. It just feels bad when you... I've seen this situation more than once, Giant Anaconda and Ysera in hand.
Right.
Which is frustrating at best.
Yeah, you kind of get into this spot of, how many plus 5-attack minions are actual quality Hearthstone cards. Because, I watched Dog encounter this exact scenario. I need one more big high-attack dude in this deck, and he ended up with Ultra Sword.
Sounds okay to me.
That's kind of where you are when you start getting that deep into having, huge attack minions in your deck.
I do like Glacial Shard as a choice here, believe it or not. I think against a heavy ramp deck with big dudes, freezing one for 1 mana, I'm okay with, and also is a very cheap elemental proc going forward. Stone Sentinel does have merit though, because of the 2/2/3 taunt. I think Earth and Elemental is less so, because of how heavy the overload is.
Really?
You like the high attack on the Elemental, right?
Yeah, I'm just taking Earth Elemental and killing him. That's my plan. You're not going to sit around and outvalue this deck. They're going to swarm you at some point.
Sure, I guess Earth Elemental next turn, followed with squeezing Hex the turn after, could get you enough tempo to actually just win. Okay.
Yeah, Earth Elemental, Hex something, Aya plus Flame Elemental potentially, and then go into Blaze Caller. It can get you there. It can get the job done. But yeah, I just like, big stats against Druid now are even stronger than they used to be. We used to say, okay, this is a huge minion, they only play 1 Mulch, there's a good chance it sticks to the board. Now, Mulch just isn't in the format.
They play 0 Mulch.
They're not suddenly slamming Naturalize in their deck.
I'd love it if they did, though.
I mean, they might at some point in the future. I'm never going to say never. People played Corruption in the last meta. It can happen. But yeah, if you just have a huge pile of stats to jam early on, especially with Earth Elemental, which is, kind of an innovate effect in itself, Overload just kind of being reverse innovate in that regards, then that's just a huge benefit. You can just get out ahead of the Druid, really start putting pressure on them, not give them all the time they need to ramp up.
Time waits for no one.
Definitely a tough one. He's going to actually Earthen Scales to get a trade off here.
Tempo push, Fel Rage and Hero Power now to take out the 4-5. I actually like this play a lot. Just making sure the board doesn't snowball, because that's how they're going to lose this game, is if a board of high health minions that Swipe doesn't interact with well sticks to the board, and then suddenly they can just snowball from that position, get value out of cards like Flame Tongue if they're there, and just keep pushing the elemental train turn after turn. That's what's going to lose you the game from my perspective. So I like Israel's reaction to that, and now Earth Elemental is going to come down, and because they've cleared up all the available trades to take care of this Maya Keeper, it means Swipe is just a very effective answer to it.
Yeah, see, I told you Earth Elemental wasn't good.
All right, good call, Raven. You got it.
Wow, now this is when you start seeing silly things happen.
Yes.
There is Anaconda.
We're not swiping anymore this turn.
No. Anaconda into Deathwing Dragonlord, and then when he dies, it's into Ysera.
Yes.
But we can see Hex is available, which was the benefit of playing the Earth and Elemental this turn, because you can still squeeze in the Hex just about.
That's perfect as well. Now that Fire Elemental's available, it means that awkward Aya plus Flame Elemental turn doesn't have to happen on 7 to activate the Blaze Caller. You can just use Fire Elemental on its own to activate Blaze Caller if he wants to. But yeah, this looks like a pretty tempting trade into the Anaconda turn, just because he doesn't really have anything else to do with his Hex.
Yeah, I was going to say, there is no world in which you wouldn't Hex this, right? I mean, there's a scary thought where you're like, oh, it'll be fine, I'll Hex the big thing that comes out. So he could have traded into it and Hexed the big thing.
Right, and some of the big things, as you so succinctly put it, like some of them are Yasharaj, that gets value immediately on the turn it's played, whereas that's value that you deny if you trade into it and then Hex it immediately afterwards. So, I mean, Japan and B7 here, you know, the line of taking the Earth Elemental kind of signifies a certain amount of aggression in the first place, and I guess you can say they're backing that up by just trying to be aggressive and not trade too much. So I buy it, but, you know, it seems like potentially some value could have been denied there by trading first.
Yeah, and if like, you happen to pull the minion they wanted to play, then it kind of potentially messes up their following turn anyway.
That's also
they gain
true.
Nothing, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll see how that one works out, though. But with no Hex available, there's, what, 7 damage available on board, Deathwing Dragonlord, 1 Hex already gone. How do you deal with this? Oh, you just push, right? Live that smoke life.
Yep, 7 to face looks like the best solution here. It's going to take time for Israel to get value out of the Deathwind Dragonlord. And you're at 29, so you don't really mind if Israel decide that they just want to race you with this 12 damage. That doesn't seem like a plan that they're winning. You saw 1 Earthen Scales, 1 Feral Rage get used as well already. There are the 2 Moonglade portals in hand, of course, which can put pay to any smorking attempt. But, you know, you have, what, 7 on board now, Fire Elemental for 10, Blaze Caller for 5 more after that. So it's 15 damage total. That doesn't require much of this power to stick to the board to end the game if there's no healing or taunt in hand for Israel. The downside of that plan is that this deck is largely comprised of healing and taunts.
Yeah, I do like the way this working this in, though. The Tar Creeper is going to be really nice. You still get extra burst from the Fire Plume Phoenix, and then you can still Blaze Caller next turn. You can still Fire Elemental if you want next turn as well.
Sure, I like this too.
This is looking nice. Moonglade Portal, it's going to have to be played. Looking for a taunt here.
I got the best deals anywhere.
Auctioneer picked up. Swipe the most damage it can take off the board. It's the same either way. If you swipe the 3/3 or the Aya, they both take 3 damage off the board. Or 4 damage, including the 1/1 that gets taken out as well.
Sure.
Tough call.
Yeah.
5, 6, 7, 8, 11 damage on board. So yeah, unless they swipe, they are dead to Blaze Caller next turn. So I imagine the swipe is always happening.
Do you ever swipe on the Fire Plume? Because it actually removes more minions from the board because of Flame Tongue.
I mean, I guess that's as good a tiebreaker as any. Like I said,
yeah, it's close.
Yeah,
but...
Fire Plume and Aya just both remove the exact same power off the board, no matter which one you swipe. So yeah, I guess this makes sense. Looking for the Innovate off the swipe, don't hit it, and that means there is now 7 damage left in play, meaning Blaze Caller will make it 12, and they're just that little bit short for now. But the Auctioneer coming off Portal is actually a big deal because we said Israel need a taunt to come off the Moonglade Portal. Auctioneer doesn't literally have taunt, but the fact they're not dead on
Yeah, if you
board,
can't kill them.
it kind of has taunt.
Well, the problem is drawing into cards like Earthen Scales as well.
Exactly.
Could just lose you the game instantly if you don't kill this Kajizan.
Right. So is this going to be... I'm looking at like potentially Maelstrom and actually Fire Ellie the Auctioneer and then push face with everything else? Does that ever get you there?
Me,
Looks like that's
me
the
personally or B7?
Well, I would hope that you and B7 are both entirely optimal Hearthstone players.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's as close as B7's going to get here. Still, the 12 damage from the Deathwing Dragonlord isn't going to be enough.
Sog champ.
Is Sogchamp good enough, though?
It's 9 health of taunt. He trades through the
Yeah,
Fire
the Fire
Ellie.
Ellie,
6. I mean, yeah, it eats everything on the board pretty much. There's 1 damage that gets to go face plus the Blaze Cooler.
Well, you Blaze Call the...
If he
5/9,
storms, right, yeah. So if he storms and Blaze Callers, I mean, obviously for Israel, this play was good enough to keep them alive on the board, which is what they care about. But now for B7, if he high rolls the Storm at 3 and then Blaze Callers, that's 8 on the Sogoth. It trades in 1, that's 9, and that would be lethal. So there is a 50-50 lethal opportunity
There are no
here.
Taunt Dragons in the hand for Japan to actually worry about from Deathwing Dragonlord after this Lightning Storm here. So let's see.
It's actually guaranteed,
Yeah, it's
right?
guaranteed. Yeah,
low
because
roll
the 2 attack on the thing. Yeah.
Yep.
It's going to pull the Ysera, but Japan take it. Job done. B7, although losing his first game, redeems himself for Japan. I'm not even surprised to see him wearing the shades. He does it every single time. Flick